With him being the second quarterback that the Patriots drafted, a lot of speculation came out that they would try and move him to the tight end position. You've already mentioned that you don't see that happening. How come?
I just don't see him as a tight end. There's plenty of 6'5" guys playing tight end, so he's not unique there. And you pick him because of his arm. And the more you go back and watch some of his throws, it just looks effortless.
We have a good family friend here with us, and Jack Collinsworth. He's with NBC and kind of does a little bit on the side with the family-run business and pro football focus. We're going to turn our attention now to Tennessee. They had 3 volunteers taken off the board, the first being Jalen Wright in the 4th round, which Miami actually had to give away a 2025 third-round pick to go get Jalen Wright. What kind of a compliment is that to the running back that they're willing to trade up even in the 4th round to go get the 5th running back off the board?
I think it's a great point, Paige, because it was probably the first thing that I thought looking back at the pick too is at running back, teams are not willing to typically do things like that. Trade picks, pay extra money. It's not viewed as that type of position anymore. It's viewed more, you can pick up a free agent, you can go to the middle rounds of the draft. And so the fact that they were willing to give up some picks, a pick to go get him, to me means that they really liked him. And it's not a team that's desperate at running back by any means. Raheem Mostert's still there, as well as Devon Achane, who's another speed running back. But it's a fun offense to be in. That Mike McDaniel is a fun personality, but he uses so much of this speed motion with guys running across the field. And so he'll have opportunities for 80-yard touchdown runs and show off his speed and catch the ball out of the backfield. So when I looked at not only him and his game, but the fit with Miami, I think he'll quickly be in that running back rotation. And shoot, guys get hurt all the time. It could end up being his backfield as the year goes on.
Yeah, you mentioned that sometimes like the running backs kind of lose some stock in the NFL draft. You just look at the longevity that they have in their pro career. Jalen Wright, able to stay healthy during his time at Tennessee last year, had 7.4 yards per carry. And then according to PFF, almost half of that 4.4 was after contact. How valuable is that for our running back who kind of is a bit more linear to be able to break through that initial point of contact?
Well, I think it's huge because it's how you specifically evaluate his position, right? I mean, if you just looked at yards, then you could factor in how good's the offensive line. I mean, is he 7, 8 yards on the field before he's getting touched? But I mean, that just shows that he's capable of doing things on his own. And the nature of playing in the NFL is that it's never going to be easy or perfect, or you're not going to have those massive holes. So you have to be able to break tackles. And so I think when they start evaluating the position, that's one of the first things they look at is, all right, forget about your team and your offensive line and the receivers blocking for you. What did you do for yourself? And that's an area and a good stat that shows he's able to do it for himself at times.
How do you maybe envision him with Miami, where you do have guys like Raheem Mostert, who I think led the league with 18 touchdowns a year ago?
He had a massive year. And Achan is somebody who's exploding onto the scene too. So I think it's one of, honestly, if not the most sophisticated offense in the NFL. McDaniel's just a smart guy. And all the players that you talk to down there, Tyreek Hill and Waddle and Durham Smythe, the tight end, another Notre Dame guy, they just talk about how much they like playing for him. And I think the reason why is that he's cool and he has this unique personality he doesn't try to be what a head coach should be. He's just whoever he is, he's specific to himself. And I think that authenticity draws players in. But his scheme it's just different than a lot of teams you see, maybe similar to like an Andy Reid type scheme where he knows how to use speed, and I think that's why he continues to draft these 4-3 players, is because he knows how to put them in space. And so when you watch him play in this offense, you'll see him get in more open space, almost like a college type thing where it looks like, oh, he has 5, 6, 7, 8 yards to operate. That doesn't typically happen, but when you have multiple guys running 4-3 on your offense, you can do some creative things motion-wise to free up that space. And I think that's why he makes sense there in Miami.
Yeah, what is it with Miami being able to get real speedsters on their squad?
You think you just got to draft them. I mean, there's some teams like Andy Reid's another good example. Forever, out there with the Raiders, they used to do it all the time too, just drafting guys that run 4-3, and you're going to miss. I mean, you don't always get it right just looking at 40 time, but when you watch the tape, when you watch them run and then it pairs together, I think that's when you start feeling pretty good about it. And Jalen Wright's one of those guys that pairs the tape with the speed. And Rodney Harrison, his son, plays at Tennessee with Wright, and we just did a mock draft right after it. And he said that one of his favorite picks of the draft was Wright going to Miami. And so I think that tells you his personality, who he is. Rodney would know all those things from him playing with his son, and then ultimately the fit within that division, which he knows so well. And I just think that this pick makes a lot of sense. And maybe not year one does he explode with that running back room having a couple other guys, but throughout the next couple of years, I see him at being somebody that I have 400, 500 yards and, maybe have a breakout year.
Yeah, I mean, you'll hear NFL scouts or other like NFL insiders really say that they favor Jalen Wright as far as that running back class is concerned. What's so enticing about Jalen Wright?
Well, I think the speed is probably the number one thing, honestly. I mean, if you talk to McDaniel about why he's interested in him, it would probably be that. They run some of that outside zone stuff where can you get the edge? I mean, that's a lot of the question. And the success that they had with Devon Achane is probably what drew them to go, okay, let's go get Jalen Wright. And there's a lot of value just the way that the money is set up in the NFL to have a running back on a rookie deal. They don't want to pay. They want you on those first 3 or 4 years. They don't want to go pay you beyond that, because then it just becomes hard. You're already paying your quarterback and your pass rushers and your corners and your receiver. It's not a position that they want to put money into. So I think that's why you see them go back and draft another one so that they can reset the process of a cheap running back with speed. And that's what they did.
Hey, more bang for your buck. And then when we look a couple of rounds later in the sixth round, we saw two other Tennessee Vols to kind of round out the group be drafted. The next one was Joe Milton. He just finished his sixth year in college football, his final year at Tennessee. Just kind of initial reaction seeing that the Patriots were, I guess, double dipping in the quarterback room.
Fascinating pick. I think this probably was one of the more fascinating picks of the draft. And, it's a perfect place to go, maybe more so than any other team right now, because he's going to have no pressure being a sixth round pick. And in my opinion, have an opportunity to be the starter eventually. He'll be in there in training camp, and the way he throws the ball at 6'5", 230. I mean, he looks like Josh Allen or Cam Newton. I think he'll probably put on a little bit more weight too, but he runs better than I thought. Throughout the course of the season, you just watch the games from afar. But when I was going back, just getting ready to do the show with you, I realized that he runs. And this year you saw it show up 307 touchdowns. And so you see not only that he can move, but also that he's been effective in the red zone, actually scoring with it. And he protects the ball, 5 interceptions over the last couple of years. 30 touchdowns, 5 picks. You like the way that translates. But I can remember the Manning Passing Academy and those type of things, and he would just make wow type throws. Is he still a little raw? Yeah. But he'll have zero pressure to play this year, next year. He'll just be able to hang out and learn the offense and be a backup. Jacoby Brissett's there. Drake May will have the pressure on him. But I wouldn't want to have him there to compete with. I mean, he's got a lot of tools that would work in the NFL, and I think he'll have a legitimate chance in New England.
How much is his size alone, and then you couple that with his arm strength, enough for these NFL teams to want to take a chance on a sixth year?
Well, I think it's huge, but I also will give him a chance to play earlier. Anytime you can bring something else to the offense, then maybe they'll bring him in the red zone. You get down there at second down and you bring him in, and maybe he'll run, maybe he'll throw. It just gives the other team something else to think about. And you've seen guys that have his size and his makeup that get an opportunity. I know that they've talked about, hey, let's put him at tight end or a different position. I don't see him like that. But just to get yourself involved in the offense, sometimes a package like you're discussing in the red zone where you can run or throw can just open people's eyes, including the coaching staff, to maybe this is somebody we rotate in and not have sitting on the bench as a third string quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, you touched on it. There's now 5 quarterbacks in the quarterback room for the Patriots. Where do you see this team utilizing Joe Milton in the coming years or weeks even?
Yeah, I mean, I think it probably starts slow and builds. Like Drake May will be the one that they're trying to get in the game right away. I think their team probably still is not of the top of the league caliber, so they'll probably get their butts kicked a good bit.
All
Um,
right now, okay.
yeah, I mean, I just think that they will. Like they don't have much skill players. I know they had a lot of draft picks and they're trying to fix it and sign the guys that they like, but I don't see them as a team that's going to be in the playoffs this year or anything like that, which is okay when you're a 6th round pick. And, quarterbacks get hurt all the time. And so to think that as early as this year that he could get a chance if he plays well in the preseason and all those type of things is not out of the question by any means. You just don't have many guys with his size, his arm strength, and that type of thing. But more than likely, I would say within the next couple of years, as opposed to this year is probably when you'll see him.
Yeah, and with him being the second quarterback that the Patriots drafted, a lot of speculation came out that they would try and move him to the tight end position. You've already mentioned that you don't see that happening. How come?
I just don't see him as a tight end. I don't think you don't pick a guy that has that big of an arm and go, there's plenty of 6'5" guys playing tight end. So he's not unique there. You pick him because of his arm. And the more you go back and watch some of his throws, it just looks effortless. He can just spin the ball. And then you pair that with the size. And, these teams want to know it's not necessarily are you Lamar Jackson, but can you win with your legs? I mean, when we get an open lane, can you go run? And his 4.62 40 time is about right. And, there's a lot of guys in the NFL that are good enough to win with that speed. Like I think about Herbert or Burrow or, they're that type of
Allen.
speed. Josh Allen, where it's maybe not their number one option, but when they need it, pairing with their size, it's something that they can go to. And so while he's raw and developing, I think you'll see a little bit of that. And if they can kind of work on his accuracy and just tighten up a few things with him over the next couple of years, it's why I think he's in a good position because you don't want to play as a rookie quarterback in the NFL. It's probably the biggest misconception. You don't want to get thrown into the fire because if you get thrown into the fire as a 22, 23-year-old and it doesn't work, all of a sudden you're spoiled milk, and everyone's okay, we tried him and that didn't work out. And so then not only this team, but the next team is less likely to play you. You'd much rather go somewhere beyond the shelf, learning the offense, getting the practice reps, getting the preseason reps, understanding everything, hopefully being on a better roster. I think next year this team will be a lot better than they'll be this year. And so being around good players so that when you get your chance, you actually have a legitimate opportunity to prove who you are. Like Jordan Love's a great example in Green Bay. Like he didn't play right away, but he learned, he matured not only as a player, but as a person. And then when you get on the field, you look ready, and I think that's the most important thing is looking ready when your time's right, not getting in there immediately.
Yes, and then the last Tennessee Vol to be drafted was Kamal Hadden. He's now with the Chiefs. Fun organization to be with their ongoing Super Bowl runs. Just reaction to seeing the defensive back go to the Chiefs.
Well, they just lost L'Jarius Sneed to Tennessee for a big free agency deal, so there'll be an opportunity for another corner there. I don't think he'll probably be, the first option. This as a 6th rounder. That's where he went, right? Round
Yep.
6.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think he'll probably be more rotational, have to earn it and prove it. But I mean, he had a 90.3 PFF coverage grade, which is very high. They
How
don't give
many get
away
that grade percentage wise?
not many at all. I don't see,
Okay.
yeah, you don't see 90 grades in anything, honestly. That's very rare. 80s
Wow.
are high for them, so 90 is very high. They criticized him a little bit for coming up in the run game, which I'm sure he'll work on. But the league right now is much more pass driven. Can you pass the ball? Can you defend the pass? And so I like the fact that he not only did that, but he took the ball away. Like when you watch him play, he has natural ball skills. And it doesn't catching the ball never looks hard. He kind of looks like he can, deflect passes with ease. He just sees the game well. So I like that. And, they're not going to pay guys in Kansas City. They're paying Pat Mahomes $1 billion and they're paying the guys that matter. So L'Jarius Sneed, they had to let him walk.
Mhm.
And so a guy like him gets a chance to come in and possibly play.
That 90 grade that you were talking about earlier, because you said that's kind of like a composite overall, correct? Coverage grade. Okay. So what about is that mostly in like your man coverage? Is that also in zone? What does it highlight most?
It is. Well, his grade was 90.7, but he had an even higher grade in zone coverage. And so if I had to guess, that's probably what Kansas City was looking at when they thought about taking him in the 6th round, was how well he
Yeah.
did in coverage. And that's really what they're doing. I mean, think about the nature of how they play. They score a lot of points, they get ahead, And then they try to send Chris Jones and all these young pass rushers after you, and they play defense. I mean, they're playing with the lead a lot of the time, which is why they want somebody like him. They want somebody that can get after the passer. They want to be able to protect leads. And so I think that's what they're doing in addition to trying to get another body in there with Snead leaving.
How much of Snead do you see in Haddon?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like one of those things people want to do. It's like,
Okay.
oh, Snead, this is our next one. I didn't. It wasn't my first watching him play, to be honest with you. I think he has a long way to go before he gets to be in that class, that
Category. Yes,
caliber,
okay.
that category. But I think he'll have a chance. And probably the best thing about being in Kansas City is you're going to be around amazing coaches and coaches that are going to give you a chance to have success. Spagnuolo is probably the best defensive coordinator, if not one of the best defensive coordinators in the NFL. You go up against Pat Mahomes every day in practice, which is only going to make you better. And in year one, he's going to be on the Super Bowl favorite. I mean,
Mhm.
you're going to walk on to the defending champs and the Super Bowl favorite. And for the next 3 or 4 years, he'll have a chance to compete for Super Bowls every year. And that's the cool thing about going to Kansas City is as a 6th-round pick and probably a backup cornerback beginning this year, he's going to have a chance to get a ring. And so that's probably the best part about the position he's in.
I think the most concerning aspect of him is his injury history. Obviously, he only played 7 games this year. He got injured against Alabama in a routine tackle. It was his shoulder. He says he's above or ahead of the recovery process, but knowing that he's missed 16 odd games because of injury, what's your concern level with how long he'll last in the pros given his history?
Yeah, I don't really overlook into that type of thing. I think there's so much luck factors in with injuries and good luck, bad luck. This game is physical, violent game where you just gotta get lucky. I mean, it's really that simple. And shoulders are tricky because you can re-aggravate them and you can be right back in a tough spot. But I mean, I don't worry about it. I've seen plenty of guys that have been hurt in college, gone to the NFL, and all of a sudden those injury issues go away. Seen plenty of guys who have been healthy as I'll get out in college, they go to the NFL and you see crazy injuries left and right.
Obviously, you grew up in a football family. You played football yourself. What is it like going against defensive backs that never stop chirping? Because he got in some trouble for trash talking all the time. What is it like mentally going up against those types?
I like it. I like it. It's almost like a little NBA-ish, it's like that basketball type vibe. And I think in probably the most cases within football where you get it is out there on the Autobahn, out there with receivers and with DBs, because the nature of it is these one-on-one situations a lot of the time. You get zone, but you get a lot of man-to-man. And so that's why I think it becomes similar to basketball and it's me versus you. And so then it becomes me versus you 10 times, 15 times throughout the course of a game. And guys like to talk. And I think it elevates the competition. But these coaches and these GMs, they like to see that. I mean, they like that attitude and that make no mistake, you talk to any of them, they like that stuff. I think it's a competitive edge that they want specifically in defenders and corners. And so long as you can't go crazy with it, people like that energy. I think you can win with that energy more than a guy that's quiet. So I prefer it.
Looking at the draft as a whole, what's your main takeaway from this year's draft?
Yeah, I mean, I think probably the main takeaway is just all the run of offensive players at the top of the draft. It's like all the rules that they've put in place with the NFL now has driven coaching staffs, GMs, executives to draft offensive players. And, we did a mock draft before the draft started, and people were talking about, maybe go tight end here, or receiver here, or pass rusher here. But when you really watch how the draft plays out, it's the run on the quarterback position, and that just tells you the value of it, right? I mean, until you have a quarterback that can be one of those top 10, 11, 12 guys, I just don't think you have a chance to win in the NFL. So that's why you see these teams that, even like the Atlanta Falcons, who already have Kirk Cousins, go take a Michael Penix because they just want to have 2 chances to get it right. And so I think that was probably the overarching thing for me is just the value of offense and the value of quarterback position. And you saw it again.
When we look again at the 3 guys that were taken, Jalen Wright, Joe Milton, and Kamal Haddon, who do you think has the highest ceiling or potential to have a long career in the NFL?
Interesting. Um, Highest ceiling, it's like two separate questions for me. Highest ceiling, I probably would go Milton. I mean, I
Okay.
think if Milton can catch, if he can catch the right wave of momentum, like we're talking about, I mean, Jacoby Brissett will be a great resource for him to learn NFL offense and all the complications that come with that. I like the fact that he's going to have time to learn and sit and do those kind of things. Probably the guy that will have the ability to have the fastest impact is Jalen Wright. Probably won't have the longest career just because of the position that he plays. It's hard to have
Right.
a 10-year career playing that position. But I think highest ceiling would be Milton for me, and Jalen Wright, somebody that you could see scoring touchdowns as early as next year.
Awesome. Well, Jack, I appreciate the time and insight on the three guys taken in the draft, and hopefully we'll link back up this NFL season to see what those guys are doing.
Anytime. Appreciate you having me, Paige.
Yep.